When a child is trapped in a hostile, inescapable environment, the brain strips away every luxury of normal development. Its core objective is keeping the body breathing. To survive an unlivable reality, the mind utilizes structural dissociation as a necessary internal shield. The brain builds psychological firewalls to compartmentalize terror, locking data away from the conscious self. But that load is too heavy for one consciousness. The burden is shared across separate identities, or alters. Each holds a specific piece of trauma, keeping the main chassis operational. Fragmenting the mind in a war zone is a sophisticated functional adaptation to total environmental chaos. This mental armor can protect a person through decades of isolation, a long, freezing winter where they survive, even if they aren't fully experiencing life. Even as their physical environment changes, the system's trauma kernel remains active in the background. It continues to scan the perimeter for threats that no longer exist. As an adult, the survivor faces a difficult dilemma. The war is over, but the mind does not know how to exist outside the vault. The brain violently resists opening the doors. Shedding decades of protective armor is terrifying. To a nervous system hardwired for danger, dropping the shield feels like an invitation to disaster. Healing only begins once the brain acknowledges it is no longer in a war zone. This requires a physical migration. A survivor must secure a safe perimeter, like a quiet sanctuary on the main coast, surrounded by a chosen pack of trusted people. The nervous system demands physical evidence of safety before it permits the internal firewalls to drop. Physical distance provides the necessary vantage point. From solid ground, the survivor can look back and recognize the machinery of the cage they were once kept in. Relocating establishes the spatial distance required to begin psychological integration. This security triggers a difficult transition known as the Great Thaw. A survivor often feels the most crushing psychological pain only when they are finally secure. Because the environment is secure, the brain registers that it can stop sprinting. It drops the numbing blanket of survival adrenaline it used for decades. As those firewalls thin, isolated parts of the mind and fragmented memories wake up. They begin sharing data across the system for the first time. A flood of unprocessed data strikes precisely because the survivor is finally in an environment safe enough to handle it. This creates an intense friction. Part of the mind wants to retreat into the predictable numbness of the past, while the rest works to stay present in the raw reality of the day. Karl Marx once observed about the road to truth and freedom leads through a brook of fire. Healing is a decompilation of everything that kept the person alive when the world wasn't safe. This flood marks the transition toward deconstructing a trauma-built system. Recovery does not require a perfect chronological timeline of the past or the retrieval of every lost memory. The realistic objective for a fractured mind is functional multiplicity. The system develops co-consciousness. Amnesia walls thin so different identities can see, hear, and trust each other, sharing daily memories. The mind stops treating its protective parts as threats, and the fragmented pieces operate together as a coordinated team. Functional recovery focuses on coordinating a wounded system into a unified operating structure. Security eventually shifts from a physical location on the coast to a neurological state of safety. This state is built on the choice of empathy. By reporting the abuse and protecting others, the survivor breaks the cycle and refuses the role they were trained to play. The boundary-setting anthems that once acted as armor in the dark now support a life of radical honesty. The masks are dropped. Recovery is a spiral. Bad days will occur, but the system now faces them from a higher vantage point. True freedom is the daily act of refusing isolation. It is the choice to drop the heavy armor and realize you are finally safe enough to exist in the light.